Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to episode 49 of the HaskinCast Podcast. We're almost to 50, but this episode is still very, very special. This is the second part of the Marcus Weiss interview from the Marcus Weiss Experience, who you may know from Reve, the Blue Man Group, Cirque Du Soleil's O, the plays that are done at by a public fit or at the Cockroach Theater. Amazing, multi-talented, bursting at the seams with creativity guy, as you heard in the first episode, and we're going to pick this one up. And if you guys remember from a couple weeks ago, there was no good time to kind of stop the interview where it was going to make sense because of the way the dialogue flowed. So we're just going to jump right back into the conversation at the beginning with a question. We were talking, I believe, about when we were doing Shrek at the Adelson School a couple of years ago. I was the audio engineer and he was directing that play. Allison Dingle, who also works over at Absinthe, was doing the lighting and production there. And Angela Chan was the music director, along with Dave Philippus, who was doing an amazing job. Just a great, great group of people. These are the kind of people I love working with. They're all very dedicated, very passionate, very good at what they do. I was definitely honored to be asked to be a part of that group. And I had worked with both Angela and Marcus on Brightside prior to that. And just a great, great experience. The trouble with that theater is that it really wasn't designed for plays. So the audio booth is up at the top of the stairs in the back of the theater, mostly enclosed in walls and glass. And even sliding the window open, you really don't get a good perception of how it sounds out in the theater. So you constantly have to run out and then run back. And then they had a fairly small number of mics. So there was a lot of mic handoff that happened, and they're kind of brittle. So it's always that nervousness of, is a mic going to go out? But they're great gigs. I love working with the kids. I love watching them, how passionate they are, how hard they work. And I was I also did audio the last couple of years at Durrell Red Rock School out near Red Rock Canyon with Marcus's wife, Anastasia, and Kate St. Pierre. And those, another fantastic group of kids. And this year I didn't run audio at either one, but I was able to go attend one of the plays at each of the schools. And it's amazing to see how many kids just, how they grow and they progress and how they hold their passion, how they support each other. Just an absolute joy to be around these people and be at this event. And even if it's a year that I'm not running audio, I definitely want to go down and experience what whatever the play is this year, which I did. And then next year, I think they're like in March usually. And I'll go again next year, hopefully, and see the kids again. They're amazing, just amazing. It's definitely important to support these kids at any of these schools and show them that you believe in what they're doing, that they're appreciated for all the hard work and for the effort, and give them a reason to keep going and keep following their passions and letting those creative genes just grow and expand and turn into even more wonderful things. So that's my, public service announcement for this episode. Let's get to Marcus, though, because, the guy's amazing. And it was just such a great time talking to him. He's a very good friend, wonderful person. And let's just get right back to it, man. And here is Marcus. I'll be back next week with my special guest for episode 50, who I'm very excited about and actually just confirmed a few minutes ago. As long as our schedule holds well, then I'll be able to get that recording done and get that out to you on time. Take care, guys. And here is the second part of my interview with Marcus Weiss of the Marcus Weiss Experience. One other thing about that show, which I found really interesting, is that you cast a female lead to play Shrek, which I thought was interesting. What led to that decision, or do you remember?
Well, Shrek traditionally, right, is a large, unattractive, right, ogre,
right?
Yeah, and it's intimidating and like, you're throwing your weight around and you're grumpy, and then he has this journey of ultimately finding love and happiness by embracing the other side of himself. Mm-hmm. What led to the decision was a combination of things. I mean, the we had to, when in general, but also specific with Addison, when you're dealing with casting a kids show, you have to balance capacity with need, with different things. So it's not just who sort of it's about the audition, of course, but it's also about, okay, who will be able to carry this, and who doesn't have other, the scheduling, they have to do with like who's going to be able to be at all the rehearsals that are needed, and those kinds of things. But in this case, really, the young lady she was in ninth grade, I believe, at the time. Mm-hmm. was not just female, but she was also shorter than you would imagine, like even shorter than Fiona, than the woman the young lady who ended up getting cast as Fiona, the love interest, right?
Right, yeah.
And so there was a lot of things where you're like, what's going to happen? But what was most important was just the heart that she brought to it, and that she was really, in her audition, really showed a connection to what it was about in the scenes and the songs that we sang for the audition. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that came the fact that she was a musician, and she showed that she'd have the capacity to carry it. And then also, like, well, who can play donkey and who can do this? So we had to balance the talent that we had with the casting. But really, she earned the role by showing that she could do it. And there was something really interesting and intriguing about it. And I think that in the end, that is what read on stage, was where this character was coming from, what this character was trying to say, how this character was living their life, which was much more important than, is this character tall and male?
Yeah, it definitely added an interesting dynamic when I saw that, and I thought, this should be fun. And I thought she did a great job. I definitely didn't think that it's any role that has to be played by a male, but I like when people stray from tradition sometimes and create new avenues or just even a new perspective.
Yeah. I mean, in this case, you had sort of the advantage of being in a fantasy world in a way, right? So, I mean, who knows what ogres are like anyway? Mm-hmm. So in that way, but I really think that people didn't even see two women up there. And then, the young lady, her name was Sarah, who played the ogre, who played Shrek, I don't think she was even playing male.
Yeah.
She didn't even do anything to like be different than just how she would interpret a moment.
Right.
And yet Fiona, who was also a lady named Sarah, incidentally, it wasn't a same-sex relationship even.
Right.
It was just a relationship. Mm-hmm. Am I right? Am I crazy?
No, it
remember it that way?
I think the way that I would say it is that it was just two entities that had a connection. They didn't necessarily have to be defined as male or female. It's just that, of course, and within the cartoon world, they're really not ready to stray away from that traditional idea of what a relationship is. And maybe that's better because, for now, maybe the kids aren't ready to deal with that yet. I don't know. But I like that in the play that it didn't need to be male, female. It was just, I almost looked at it like two woodland creatures just connected.
And they got married. I mean, it is 2019.
It is,
in the sense that I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of gender questions and gender fluidity and identification versus assignment. And I think maybe it had to do with that as well. I mean, young people are really super open to that. A lot of young people I find are being really super open to that. Sure. But yeah, it was basically we focused on the relationship. Like you said, two creatures having, they could have been, two refrigerators. Mm-hmm. It just falling in love, and then they got married.
Yeah,
it's just like two beings who liked each other. Yeah, it was irrelevant.
Yes, exactly, and I really like that.
It became irrelevant.
Yeah,
we made it irrelevant.
It's kind of like just let's just connect. Let's just connect on a human, alive being level, and that's all it needs to be. It doesn't need to be defined more than that. Because if it was two men, two women, a guy and a girl, what difference does it make? It's the connection between the two characters that's important.
Yeah.
And I really like that you made that decision. I don't know if I ever told you that, but I really do like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about, choices in general, in my work, either as a director or producer or actor. When I'm talking about what's real, when people talk about reality or believability in something.
Right.
And I think, not always, but sort of in general, it really comes down, because of course it comes down to context, but it just comes down to like, would this thing up there behave in that way under the circumstances that seem to be created, communicated.
Yeah.
And that could be, so it becomes about like, oh, would a guy do that? Yeah, sure. If that's the guy that you're playing.
Right. Yeah.
Oftentimes people say that about me personally. It's like, I don't behave even in real life a lot of time as a stereotypical anything.
Right.
And I've oftentimes in my life had people go like, are you for real? Like, what are you, like, and I'm like, yes, I'm not chopped liver. I'm just me.
Right.
This and this is that. I have a hairy chest and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but this is like, what am I, chopped liver?
Do you ever just break into song when they do that? Just sing like "See Me, Feel Me, Touch Me" by The Who from Tommy. You just completely throw them off,
idea, that's a good idea.
But when you were doing this play, when you were teaching over at Adelson, Reve, your time in Reve was already done, right? They had they took out your skit, the clown thing.
The numbers, the clown numbers. They took out the clown pieces.
They took that out before you started.
Right? Yeah, they sort of we I left Reve. They changed. They rewrote some of the show, and which then the new rewrite didn't include our particular character, and so our particular characters, and so that ended. I think that might have ended that year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my goodness gracious! Now I'm losing time of the.
I think it was that fall.
It overlapped a little bit. Actually. That was the year that it was kind of come to an end. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It came to an end like in November, and I started at the Adelson Educational Campus in like August. Mm-hmm.
I had the pleasure of seeing you in Reve, and it happened to be on my birthday that you had an extra ticket. And thank you so much, by the way, for that experience.
Oh my goodness.
Because it was a joy. It's always a joy to see you perform, but to see you perform really without dialogue, that's a whole different kind of performance. Is that challenging, or are you kind of accustomed to being just a visual actor?
I'm accustomed to it. In short, I'm accustomed to it. And I was just reading a book by a very famous clown. Just yesterday, who was talking about words having a tendency to sort of define things, and non-spoken performance leaves a lot more room for ambiguity. And I really, as you might have noticed already, and those listening to this, I am not the best at being succinct. I often think sort of in ambiguities and gray areas and tangents.
Sure,
and
yeah.
So nonverbal performance for me is actually just as comfortable as verbal performance.
Well, I think it's nice for the audience too. In a way, it's kind of like listening to a piece of music with no words. If you have a piece of music with words, the song is telling you what it's about. If you have an instrumental, it can become your identification of that performance and what it makes you feel.
Yeah, sure. I mean, sure, yes. I mean, words can be metaphor. They can be metaphorical too, allegorical, or whatever it is, and a little more ambiguous. But ultimately, a word, stands for something or some things.
Right.
And so you're narrowing down the interpretation of what something is. Mm-hmm.
I would agree. But it was a great show with that act in it, I thought. And at the same time you were doing that, you were still on call at Cirque du Soleil's over at the Bellagio to sub for the clown.
Right, which I'm still doing now, actually. Right, which I'm in the middle of.
That's right, you are. But you don't consider yourself a clown.
It's funny. I don't label myself at all. I'm doing clown work right now, and I didn't grow up. I don't come from a circus background. I didn't grow up in a circus family, or I wasn't educated. I got an MFA in acting, sort of classically trained acting. So I didn't grow up in the clown world, and so I kind of fell into it via Blue Man, which includes some aspects of clown work, and in my improv, and then I got into Reve, which the role is labeled as a clown, and then I auditioned for and ended up receiving the work over at where I'm doing a temporary contract. By the way, now I'm there all the way through August. But I don't consider myself primarily a clown. Although I'm doing that work, it's really hard work. And I'm learning a lot. All I've learned has been, through a couple of workshops along the way, but all sort of on the job, and through the generosity of performers and directors I've worked with.
Yeah, But the part in O, how long is that part, that segment of yours?
In O?
Yeah.
The tune, oh my goodness sakes. I should time it one time. I don't know. Gosh, I don't know.
It's got to be at least 5 minutes.
Less than 15 minutes total.
Okay. That's a long time to carry the show. To not have dialogue, to not have, it seems
I speak a couple of words.
Mm-hmm.
I say I and things like that. I mumble.
Right.
And we mumble a little bit. We make some sounds here and there. Yeah.
Right.
But the clowns, but we do not communicate with intelligible words. So it is. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. There's something really intense about that.
And yet you create a level of emotion within the audience. They're going to feel for what your characters are going through. And I think the fact that you don't really communicate or have trouble communicating, they really feel that. I know I did when I saw it. And fortunately, I was able to see it a night that you were there as well. But it's really impressive work to me. I think that's, to me, being a non-actor, I would think that would be a challenge to carry a show for that long without having a monologue.
Yeah. I would just say it's different. I don't know, at this point in my career, if I would describe it as harder. I would describe it just sort of as different.
Okay.
It's just, I don't know. It's just different. I was about to say, like, the word, because the words, hopefully words are there to make we're trying to express ourselves, right? So it's a level on top of nonverbal.
Right.
Okay, I can't say this nonverbally, so therefore I'm going to use words. Maybe that's sort of where words came from, sounds. Okay,
right.
You're not getting it. I have to go, and then eventually that wasn't enough. And so you add words, right? So so you could think like, okay, words are easier. But at the same time, words also make people go like, okay, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, now what does that word mean? And so therefore, when you're using words, that's another level of having to be specific with how you say them, how you stress them, which words follow which other ones, how you form your sentences. Like for me, as you can tell, being succinct is hard. It's actually hard. So in some ways, sometimes for me, just making a certain kind of facial expression or just being present and looking somebody in the eyes is easier. So it depends.
And if you have someone that's active in their listening or their visual
how to make them
it makes a difference.
Okay, right. So maybe you could say like, okay, maybe making sound with my mouth draws people's attention more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of focus. I think it's a matter of focus. And there's a level of trust that we have to have in ourselves when we're communicating non-verbally.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be just as specific. And but there's a level of, I think it's trust, not just focus, but it's a sense of trust that that's enough because you're not adding the extra words. And so it has to be a trust in both ourselves and in the audience.
And you did a whole play on this very subject, small mouth sounds, which I want to get to in just a minute. But first,
that's right.
I want to ask you, so when you're working as a sub on a show, and you have especially something that's that lengthy of a segment to do in that show, is it hard being somebody that's on call and not being regular and then just going in and doing that job to just kind of jump in there and remember all the things that you have to do in that time frame?
Yeah, that's generally pretty difficult. And the logistics, the physical aspect of it in my case is not the hardest part. The hardest part of going in only infrequently is sort of the timing of things and the sensitivity of the performance, or the fine tuning of the performance, and not having the experience of, okay, well, this works better than that, and so being able to do it now for a couple of months and continuing to do it through August at O, for example, is really helpful in terms of growing in the role and go like, this works better. This feels, this gets a better response, or this feels more connected than this other thing.
Right.
But when I came in and we're doing it for like a day or maybe 2 days, you don't get that much comparison or that much opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
So to go in and sort of execute it and execute it hopefully reasonably well, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
but to really expand in the role, it takes some time.
Yeah.
And so it's been a real gift to be able to do that and be able to have conversations with people. And
Yeah, I'm really glad you're getting that opportunity now, because when I
yeah, it's
saw
great.
you, knowing that you just kind of jumped in at the last minute and did that performance that I was there for, thinking, wow, what could you do if you really had a chance to kind of get up and running in this and, really
Hmm.
kind of build up your character a little bit more. And,
Hmm.
I couldn't even imagine, because your performance was so great that night,
Oh, that's sweet.
to think, well, that's just jumping in though. What could you do if you had
Yeah.
the opportunity?
Yeah. Well, hopefully I've only grown. But then I have also experimented. I've also gone,
Sure.
oh, I got the time to try something new. Well, that didn't work. And that completely didn't work. But we put ourselves out there. I mean, hopefully I'm always in the realm of doing the show justice.
Yeah.
But thank you for saying that. Oh, yeah, it's been
Yeah.
a great experience.
And you've done your own one-man show, so you're certainly used to carrying the stage by yourself. How did you like that, doing your own show?
Are you talking about Every Brilliant Thing that I
Yes.
did for Cockroach?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, that was a scripted show that involved a lot of audience interaction and some improvisational parts of it. Well, there's something about uh, doing. I'm comfortable in. I've done one man things before.
Mhm.
So and particularly like strolling characters, or on sort of the man on the street kind of thing, and there's something, you're able to control your environment. So there's something that's more challenging about it because it's only you, and then
Mhm.
there's something that's easier about it because it's only you.
Right.
When we're talking about easy and hard, but it's just different. I don't like putting terms. You're still approaching a role. Your fellow actors are just, instead of the fellow actors being on stage and the audience, it's just the audience.
Right.
Your fellow uh, communicators are, it's just the audience instead of having other people on stage. So it's just a different way of communicating, and the responsibility is on just you.
Right. But it's a different set of advantages and disadvantages, because if there's people that you don't particularly like to work with and they're on your production, that can
Yeah,
make things a little challenging. But also at the same point, you have no supportive cast and you have to go
right,
off of the randomness of your audience every night. I mean, you can lead them to a certain
right.
extent, but there's still going to be whoever those people that purchased a ticket that night are going to be.
Yeah, and it's just your ideas for how to deal with it. If you had another person on stage that they could, another teammate, they could come up with ideas as to, or they're going to contribute the energy that they feel uh, is going to serve the moment.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a question of responsibility.
And being super attentive to the mood and swings of the audience, I would imagine, is a pretty big key to the success of a show like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely. But for me, that's always the case.
True.
Whether it's a one person thing or not.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, I'm always trying to be aware of that. I suppose in a one man show, you have more opportunities to respond to those impulses and to that inspiration and to that energy,
Right.
because you're the one who's always active.
Well, and as a director too, when we did Still Dance to Stars, you would be with the audience every night, and you're paying attention to what's hitting and what's not hitting, and
Oh,
this
sure.
this really didn't work, so let's try this tomorrow show or whatever.
Right.
And the audience is everything. It doesn't matter how good you give of a performance or have a story to the audience if they're not grasping it.
Oh, yeah, sure. But of course, once you're doing, I mean, there's certain things you can fluctuate with, right? But on the other hand, but at the same time, your play is, if it's not improvisational, the play is directed, or it's you've created it, you perform it sort of as rehearsed in some ways.
Right.
So you've got room to communicate, but ultimately you're committing to the story that you've agreed to tell.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's challenging. It's challenging in that way because you can't just change it up entirely. Um, it's an interesting balance. You've always got to stay with the same intention, the intention of the story overall, or the intention of your character in the moment,
Right.
and then you can play within that.
Well, and communication with the audience obviously is very important. I don't mean direct talking to them, but communicating with the character. And I think the last play that I saw you in, Small Mouth Sounds, with many of our friends, Timothy Cummings, Dina Emerson, that was an incredibly powerful play, because really the majority of the dialogue came from an off-screen narrator that was interacting with the characters, but the characters themselves spoke incredibly little. And it was all about physical direction from one character to another, or emotional cues that a character would have to pick up on. That had to be a real challenge to get that play, make it tangible for an audience.
It took place. The action of the play takes place in a silent retreat over the course of 5 days. And so, like you said, about 75% of the play is non-spoken. Although there's a lot of sound that came through, sounds that we made on stage, of whether it was steps or crumpling of paper or dropping of objects or things like that, as well as sounds that were produced by the sound designer, with the exception of like a long monologue that I had in the middle and people who broke the rule of the silence,
Right.
So spoken word became really, really important. But what was most, I think, challenging for the director and us in the process was still establishing what you were saying with every moment without having lines, and then establishing and sensing and then rehearsing when somebody was quote unquote speaking and when you were listening and when somebody was done speaking. Because there was times when, when we were overlapping scenes and we were all on stage sitting in a row at the same time, and you had to know what was going on so that you didn't quote unquote step on somebody else's line. Right. You didn't interrupt somebody with something that you were doing in silence, right? Because you weren't always looking at each other. So we had to coordinate, we had to coordinate a lot, like really choreograph or compose or whatever it is, or conduct scenes in that way. And you had to keep within a really sort of keep the music of the play consistent, because you couldn't hear when somebody was done speaking.
Right.
So you had to know what they were doing, what was happening, and then fit what you were doing in between those things. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you have to be very specific. You have to be super specific about what your intentions were at any given point in time.
I can tell you as an audience member, and I only saw it once, but it was hard to tell sometimes where I should be focusing my attention, because all of you are in this room and you've all got your sleeping bags out and you're all getting ready for bed. And I'm not sure who is it I'm supposed to be paying attention to, but I think that's kind of the beauty of it, is that you can get a different experience by paying attention to what different people are doing.
Yes. And that was intentional too, because we, the director, Emery Pereth and Joe Coogan, who kind of worked together towards the end, they were aware of that, right? And so some of that was intentional, and when we didn't want people to look in different places, they changed it. But whenever you had that impulse, the directors were aware of that, and that you're absolutely right. While the intention may not have been specifically like, make sure we do this so people come back, it was just like, that's an inherent part of the play. Right. And of the experience, that stuff happens at the same time, just like in real life. Stuff happens at the same time, and depending on where you are in your interpretation of the story and what you're perceiving and what you want to do, you'll shift your focus. Right. Like, oh my goodness, what just happened there? That must affect this person that way. Let me look at that character. Yeah. Depending on whose story you were following was the result of how you were digesting the story. Whoever you were sympathizing with or whoever you were interested in most at that point.
I know that our time is a little bit short today, but I do want to talk to you about Still Dance the Stars. But before we do, I have one more question about this play. Besides it being such an emotional roller coaster of the characters going through different things, and if you're going to a meditation retreat, it's all about discovery and things that you're learning about yourself and the person maybe that you came with, as we saw in a couple of the relationships there. But you guys had some interesting things that you did to kind of practice not talking.
Yes, we went on a silent retreat ourselves. We spent a whole day with the cast, starting early in the morning at the director's house. Actually, we had a yoga session, and then we went in silence all the way up to an area towards Red Rock. Went on a almost 4-hour hike in silence. Went back home, cooked dinner, and had dinner together, all in silence until the end. So it was approximately, a 9-10 hour day in silence.
So that must have felt like a good 40-hour week, though, straining to not say anything and not communicate.
Well, it was beautiful. And for many of us, I mean, it was completely informative
Mm-hmm.
and wonderful. And many of us perceived it in very different ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for some of us, it was super hard. I really loved it. And but I was coming from a place of like, my goodness, I teach and I act for a living. And so I, I relished the ability to not to have to speak
Yeah.
for a day. And that was really, really wonderful. Some of us were going through different things in our personal lives, and being silent and becoming very internal about those things was hard
Sure.
for some of the people who did it.
If you're not distracted, your mind will occupy itself with whatever it wants to think about.
Exactly.
But
Right.
I love that you guys did the hike. I can kind of see that working fairly well. But cooking a meal together, doing an activity. I love that you guys did an actual activity without talking, because you have to
Yeah.
coordinate a lot of stuff cooking a meal. How did that go?
Well, you just knew what you were, you sort of knew what you were going to do. I think some of it was prepped, much of it was prepped, whatever. So we came and we helped heat it up, and then, and do the waters and do whatever. And it just do gestures. You'd be amazed at how little words are actually necessary.
I think we feel the need to fill space. You know, like if like two people can't just sit next to each other and enjoy the energy of each other. It's like we feel we have to entertain the other person with conversation, and if we don't, then it gets awkward. And I have a friend that I used to be able to do that with whenever we were in the same town. We could go on a 4-hour drive, or we could sit by the pool next to each other, and we didn't have to speak. We could just enjoy being next to each other. And I love that when you have that connection with someone.
Right. Like you said, when you have that love, right? Because you're implying that if the connection is really good, you don't have to speak to each other.
Right.
At the same time, right? We also associate when things are really bad, then we don't speak to each other.
Right. You don't hear about a happy silence. You hear about an awkward silence.
Yeah, you hear an awkward silence, exactly. But in our case, by that time, the cast is really close. We were all friendly and friends with each other.
Sure.
And so making and having the dinner together wasn't awkward. It was only awkward as it might be funny, to the extent that it might be silly or funny that we can't talk. Like, oh, we almost made this. Somebody made a silent joke. Oh, we can't talk now. And that was fun. But the awkward, it didn't really feed into awkwardness because we knew each other so well. We didn't have to worry about like, why is that person not saying anything? We knew what the context was. We didn't have to read into it. I don't know this person. This might be awkward. Why are they not saying anything? Like that part was gone. Mm-hmm. So much of our experience was simply absorbing what was helpful for the show and enjoying each other's company.
Well, and it obviously worked very well because you guys pulled off that show in spades, and the emotional roller coaster was very intense. But I think it would be interesting, and I think that you guys did have an advantage with the familiarity because most, if not all of you, have worked together multiple times over the years. I think it would be interesting to do that with complete strangers and still do the same show.
Right, which is actually what it was in the play. Most of the characters are strangers.
Mm-hmm. Right. But to do that in real life, like have people that don't have any familiarity with each other and see, as an experiment, see what comes out of that, I think could be really fascinating.
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely. And that's a lot of what comes up in silent retreats. I mean, the context has a big effect on it, right? Are these people who've all signed up to do a silent retreat, in which case you can sort of assume at least they're on board with it.
Right.
At least they're all willing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're up against, well, how are people dealing with it? Yeah. And that was what the play was ultimately about. Some of us had an easier time being silent than others.
Right.
And some of our silences interfered, and some of the silence interfered with what people felt like doing and felt like expressing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And that's where a lot of the dramatic tension came from in the piece.
My feeling was I felt everybody was already, all in because you paid your $2,500 or whatever it would have been,
right?
In context to go to this retreat. You're not just going to throw that money away and not take it seriously or try to get something out of it. Anybody that pays in, wants it.
Sure, but you don't know exactly how you're going to respond to it.
True.
Regardless, right? I mean, the buy-in. I mean, yeah, sure. Everybody bought in with some kind of hope.
Mm-hmm. And
then they were surprised or less surprised by how they responded to what happened at the silent retreat, and encountered, intentionally by the playwright, scenarios that strained their experience and rubbed up against their hopes.
And then you guys did a fantastic Q&A afterwards, which I absolutely love. And Anne Marie's plays usually have those. I love the hearing the different things from the audience of what their perception was, and then hearing from the actors. And I would imagine for you guys, it's interesting because you get a different perspectives every performance of what people, what their experience was with the show. Does it make you feel good as an actor to hear some of that stuff, or does it make you start going, did I play that right? Should I maybe try something different tomorrow?
Well, I'm used to them. I've done a number of plays with the public fit before, and I'm sort of used to compartmentalizing those things, I think. For me, I see it mostly as an opportunity to delve deeper into the piece.
Right.
And it just informs I use what I can internalize, what I can use and internalize, and I don't things that are not useful. And then, but it's also a very, very interesting intellectual time. Mm-hmm. Which is really interesting, having conversations. But being able to separate those things are important. Some actors who performed with them before have might have different feeling about the talkback.
Sure.
It might be hard if you go like, oh, it's going to affect my performance, because ultimately we want to be faithful to, again, what's been directed and the story that we're trying to tell.
And you have to realize too that people are coming from the perspective of the result, and they haven't been on the journey. They haven't seen why the person has developed their character the way they have, and it's really easy to judge at the end of the game how the game should have been played or how they would have done it without having been there for all the the rehearsals and all that too. So. I think it's like kind of grain of salt time. You just have to listen to what they say and go, well, that's interesting. Or I hadn't considered that if I had, but I didn't. So
yeah. And it's primarily those talkbacks are for the audience.
Right.
They're there to continue the conversation for the audience. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you got to keep the focus on that. Right.
Yeah. Well, so before we go, my dear friend, and thank you so much. I know this has been a long time coming. And I appreciate your patience with the timing of putting this all together.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the one we did together.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Still Dance the Stars. We were the third theater company in the world to do this one, I think it was.
I think you're right. There was two productions before us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sort of they had a rolling world premiere for that play. Mm-hmm. Jamie McGann, who wrote the play, had three productions in a row.
And the thing is that when the play started, you made me kill a child every show. And
that's right.
And it broke my heart to do it because she's so lovely. Aviana was our
Aviana Glover.
Fantastic actress, wonderful person, and I had to kill her night after night, and that was a hard thing for me to do. I actually because I was on stage the whole time and I didn't have any dialogue, but I was present for the whole thing, and I would go sit, I would kill her, and then I would sit down, and inside I would weep that I had to do that. I really felt bad as a person because I mean I know we had to start the play and it had to set things in motion, but that was hard for me to do.
Yeah, it was because it represented because the play is it was about the struggles of a couple who are dealing with having had a stillborn. Mm-hmm. And so in the beginning of the play, the child, the character who then plays the child from beyond in a way, passes away, so that she's then living in another dimension almost, and then comes back. For those who don't know the play, comes back as a stuffed animal essentially, and speaks to the parents, and all these other characters from the play come alive in this other world, which is the world in which the father and subsequently the wife too process the events, or part of how they process the event.
Right.
So yeah, right. I mean, hopefully. I mean, you were almost like an audience member in that way.
Yeah, I was in a lot of ways.
Because you had to do something and then you just dealt with it for the rest of the play. Mm-hmm. But ideally, that's how all performers are, and everybody in the space that's experiencing the play. Right. The first thing happens. We come into the space. The very first thing happens, and then we're just in it. We're all in it together.
Yeah.
And some of us speak and do more than others, meaning the performers. But everybody's should be in a similar predicament.
Yeah, it was
as you were.
Yeah, and it was such an emotional play too, because you're dealing with obviously the loss of a child, which is going to strain any relationship, and then dealing with their fame that they had prior to that inside the story. They became nationally known for a video proposal that went viral, And so they're in the spotlight. So then everything you do is scrutinized, and they're dealing with the loss of the child, their ending relationship, having to go on camera again, and all these things. And and then you're also dealing with the journey of the child who's passed on as well, because she's trying to understand why things happened. And that play was another, just like Bright Side, a very complete emotional roller coaster. It had some great humor in it, which was wonderful. And it had some really devastating moments in it too. And it was a tough play to be a part of, just because of that. Even just being there present, it was hard to watch the fights between the wife and husband, and you know.
Yeah, I love the play, and it had so many, layers in it. But it was reconciling, a lot of, like you were saying, a lot of different emotional places.
Yeah.
Like it was devastating one moment, and then you turn on a dime, and then a stuffed animal will be breakdancing on stage.
Right.
So when you first read it, like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna pull this off? And I hope that, it was interesting that, that Levi Fackrell and Darren Weller over at Cockroach Theater, the artistic director and producing director, asked me to do it. They're like, who could possibly direct this? And they thought of me because it's something that perhaps I exemplify in real life. One moment he's crying, one moment he's laughing. But I see life that way.
Yeah.
And I experience life that way too. I open my eyes to things, and I go there. And I think that's how we all are. It's just a matter of how we deal with things, and how we cover things up or don't cover them up. But I think all of us laugh and cry multiple times every day.
But I think this goes back in a way to that fearless side of you, that you would be willing to take this on. I mean, you look at it on the page and you see the emotional side of the story, but you're like, okay, so wait a minute. Sometimes we're in the real world, and then sometimes we're in like this weird stuffed animal world. But you were willing to take that on and say, there's a way that we can get the audience to understand the difference between the two worlds without having to go, now we're entering stuffed animal world. You transitioned everything so well, but you looked at this and you said, I'm willing to take this on. And I don't think a lot of people would be willing to do that. I would think that they would find it a bigger challenge than they would be willing to go for. And you did it, and it came off beautifully.
Well, thank you.
I mean, it was a long process to get there.
Yeah, it is a long, but I think, it starts with, hopefully there was with the team, with, you and the other designers, and that I could, because you wrote beautiful music for it.
Thank you.
That we all worked together to create, the conventions, and to create the kind of like, okay, how are we going to educate, starting from the beginning, the audience to go with us on this journey? We all crafted it together, but it also, on all of our parts, I think required this faith that is something that we as human beings are capable of doing, if we just have the faith, that it's okay, that if something strikes us, that it's okay. Like, yes, you're allowed to laugh at that. That's okay.
Right.
That's funny. And then it's okay if something is sad. Like, yes, you have permission to be sad about that.
Right.
So it's a matter of sort of peeling off or breaking down those walls, some of the stuff we were talking about earlier with regard to children and stuff. If we can remove some of those walls or shells or layers that keep us from feeling, that then we realize that life really can be, or is that kind of a ride each and every day.
Right.
Or can be that kind of ride every day,
And even down to the lighting and the tones, everything was vital to making this show transition the way that it did from one world and one segment into another. I mean, it was meticulous the way that you worked on this and designed it. I think that you picked some great people to work alongside you with it, and I think that was a big key to the success. I had Katrina Carreau on, who played the wife, the lead actor, back when the show first started in October. And,
that's right.
And we were talking about it. And by the way, it's been a year now since we were doing the show. We were just wrapping up, I think, about a year ago.
Right.
But that was one of the things that we were talking about, was how difficult the show was to perform from an emotional side, especially her character, who had some amazing mood swings that she had to go with.
Right. Right.
But it was a lot of fun. And I have to say, you pushed me to some really interesting limits because I'm not an actor. And you're like, well, just look down here and flirt with these girls. I'm like, I don't even do that in real life. I don't know how to flirt. But you made me want to go out there and give the best performance I could. I don't know that there's too many other people that would have inspired me to do that.
Really?
Honestly, yeah. Because I saw how much you were putting in, how much everyone else was putting in. And I thought, if you're going to trust me, I mean, first of all, even just to trust me to write music for that was a real honor for me.
Oh, you're so sweet.
But to trust me as somebody who's not an actor to be an actor and to not be a distraction, that was a big deal. You know, if I was pushing it too far, you would let me know. Like you told me to stop flipping Jake off, which I did.
Right.
You know, but I wanted to do the best I could because we had a great cast. We had a great crew that put so much into that show, from the set design to the lighting to the audio cues, to your direction and the depth which you dug into these characters to help the actors bring it out, because I was able to be there for most of that. I was just so blown away by that. And everyone was just wonderful. There was no drama, no diva moments or anything. It was just a great group of people to be around. And I remember on the last day, I kind of felt like about halfway through the play, I was sad that it was coming to an end, because as much as I didn't want to be on the stage because I was afraid of being a distraction, I didn't want it to end at the same point. I wanted that to be my new job. Like, this is what you do. You go and do Still Dance to Stars 5 nights a week or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was a tough thing. I mean, you really pushed me to limits that I didn't know I had in me. And I thank you for that.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for saying all that.
I'm still no better at flirting, don't get me wrong. And I can flirt with invisible people really well now.
Well, that's a start.
Yeah.
That's a start.
Right. Someday it'll be real.
You got to practice somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm glad I could set you on that course. It's a treacherous journey. Beware.
It is.
Unbelievable. Well, thanks so much. It was amazing. Yeah, it was a wonderful, it was an incredible time, and I can't believe it's already been a year.
I know.
And here we are doing this.
But what do you take away from a show like that after all the work that you put into it and the casting and having such a just incredible group of people, and then it's over? What do you take away from something like that?
You know, you take away, I take away the memories, and I take away sort of what I felt, and I take away the feedback in the faces of the audience, and I take away sort of the hope that they carry memories with them as well, and that when they go through life, you know, and they go like, oh, that reminds you of Still Dance to Stars, or that reminds you of something I heard there, or remember that, or they take something they saw and they apply it to a situation in their life. But I just hope that everybody takes away some kind of memory, the actors and designers and members of that theater community as well.
Yeah.
That everybody takes some kind of memory away, because that's all we have from plays.
Right.
Memories and the questions that remain.
I can honestly tell you that I will forever be affected by those 3 weeks that we spent on stage in the months of rehearsals and everything leading up to it. When I first read the play, I was like, yeah, I like it, and I didn't understand it. And it wasn't until the first table read that I went to when I heard character voices and I could kind of see the difference between the two worlds, where I really thought, okay, now I really think we have something. But I was so honored that you had asked me to be a part of it, that I was like, well, whether I understand it or not, I'm sure it'll come together and it'll be great. I just wanted to be in because you trusted me to work on it with you. And, you know, the most personal thing that you could do is ask me to write music for it.
Of course, you're great.
Interestingly,
you're wonderful in every way.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. The very opening to the show is a piece of music that I wrote as a demo for the newscast segments that we didn't end up using. But that was one of the first ones that I wrote. And I thought, this is really cool. I think this would be a great opening for the podcast. So I just repurposed it to be the opening for the podcast.
No way.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. So
amazing.
It was a great time. And again, Marcus, I'll never, the amount of gratitude that I have for you, for all the projects that we've done together, but especially that one is undying. I mean, that was an experience that I could have never gotten any other way.
Oh, thank you for saying that. And it's like really the purpose. That's the purpose of my life. Hope. I hope. You know, when I had my 50th birthday, Anastasia threw me a birthday party, And there was a lot of people there who, it was a surprise party, and she got people to come, and they were all somehow affected by my presence in their lives. And I suppose maybe we all have that.
Mhm.
Is that we like to make a mark on other people's lives.
Sure.
That's what I like to do anyway.
Yeah.
Both as an actor and as a human and as a performer, director, whatever it is, but primarily as a human being, is that if we can make our mark on people, one person at a time, then we're doing our job here on Earth.
Yeah, I
or in
agree.
the universe.
I always say if I can make at least one person smile every day, then it's been a good day, regardless of if bad things have happened. The problem as entertainers is, and maybe more so in my fields than yours, because at least you get to see audience reactions, is a lot of times I have no idea people are hearing or seeing anything I've worked on.
Oh, man, good point.
And as I was doing research for the novel that I'm working on, I talked to a lot of people about different things, and it turns out that a lot of people actually do fall asleep to my mental sauna music every night, or they'll put it on when they need to calm them, or they've listened to one of my holiday albums or something. And I have no idea that people are enjoying my music. I might see a number
that's a good point.
Go up on Spotify, or I might see
especially if it's streaming and stuff. It's much harder to keep track of. It's not like but even if somebody buys a CD, you don't know how often they're listening to it,
or if they even liked it. Yeah. So it's a good thing to know that the things that we put out there, they do have an impact on people, and we are putting smiles on people's faces. We do make a difference. We really do. Of course.
Thank you.
So my last question for you, my friend.
Yes.
You've had a lot of great successes, and I'm sure there's been things that haven't worked out as well as you've liked. But being that you're a bit of a veteran in the entertainment community because you've done so much, and you've obviously worked on some major stuff. I mean, Reve, Cirque du Soleil, Blue Man Group, it doesn't really get bigger than that.
True.
So what would you, if you're like, what advice do you give to your son or somebody that wants to one day be you?
Well, good luck. No, I wouldn't say, well, they say that luck, right? Actually, I said that as a joke in a way, but I think it's true, because luck is a combination of, right? They say preparation and opportunity. So that's what I would do. I would say, like, dude, just follow your heart, and either keep your eyes open for opportunities or create your own opportunities, and then choose how prepared you want to be for those opportunities.
Yeah.
Because I never had a 10-year plan or even a 5-year plan or a 25-year plan. And arguably, I might be in a totally different place if I had, right? But then again, I got super lucky, which meant I was prepared for opportunities that came along, at least. Because I like to say that much of my life happened by chance, but of course, I give myself enough credit to say, like, well, I invested, and I tried my best, and I tried my best to nurture relationships and all that. But you can do this and you can do that, and you could talk about, sort of what to do in the business or how to train or what to do. But really, in the end, we can also choose how much we want to invest and how much we want to prepare. Some people make really strong plans and say, this is exactly what I'm going to do. But I can't really very well tell I can advise my son, but I'm also going to be honest about what I did.
Sure.
Which is like, I just kept loving what I was doing that was in front of me.
Mm-hmm. And I think that love, it shows in the auditions, and it shows in when people approach you and ask you if you want to do something, because they sense that passion and dedication that you have, as well as the skill to do it.
Yes. Right. And yes, at a certain point, I said, I would love to do, regional theater, be a theater actor, or be able to, do this kind of thing that I really admire that I'm watching. And I'm like, okay. And in order to do that, grad school,
right,
graduate school, right. So like that, but I also really felt like going to graduate school. I didn't really worry about it. It wasn't strategic. It wasn't so strategic. I got to be honest.
Right. Yeah. Well, you followed your instinct.
Yes. And just put faith in it.
Well, being that you've done so many things now, and that you've, like I said, honestly, Cirque du Soleil, La Reve, Blue Man Group, right, those are the top for our industry, at least here locally. Right. What would you like to do going forward? Where do you see your path heading?
Right. Because, I was going to say, because also don't give up unless you want to.
Right.
And I don't, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to. I want to, moving forward, I want to continue to, audition for, continue to say yes to plays, both in town and outside of town. There's a couple of things that for next season that, my signature is not on the dotted line yet, but
Sure.
things that are sort of in the work, both in town and out of town.
Mm-hmm.
So I love stage work. I hope to continue to do understudy work, do backup work for Cirque du Soleil. But I also want to continue expanding my teaching and coaching, particularly private, I think. And I'm working on a one-man show called The Marcus Weiss Experience.
Cool.
I just finally bought the website, themarcusweissexperience.com.
Excellent.
And it's going to have all sorts of like the Marcus Weiss, one-man show experience or whatever it is, which I'm working on the concept of an all improvised one-man show.
Wow.
I want to have the Marcus Weiss teaching experience. I want to have the Marcus Weiss drawing experience, the Marcus Weiss podcast potentially experience.
Yes.
Still working on that. So it's like personal services, as my dear friend Rhys Davies from Britain once said. That was sort of my thing. That's my business. It's personal services, meaning like
I could see that. Yeah, I could totally see that. And we had talked a while back, I think it was at Vincent's 50th birthday party, about doing like a YouTube channel or a podcast kind of thing. And
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I definitely see people really gaining. And I mean, I've seen you work with adult actors. I've seen you work with kids. I think you're great with both of them. I could definitely see a lot of people benefiting from that for sure. And I absolutely wish you the best with that.
Thank you.
You're one of the people that honestly, I mean, as a person, as a friend, as a colleague, I just have the utmost respect for. There's nothing that we haven't done that I haven't enjoyed. I may have been frustrated during it or, because of the production or the pace or whatever. And Ephigenia was another one that you and I had done together.
That's right.
And I'll have to talk to that, to Kate when she comes on the show. But we've done so much together, and I've thoroughly enjoyed working with you every single time. And,
thank you. And I with you.
Thank you. And I can't say enough that I'm honored to know you as a friend and a colleague, and I can't wait to see what you do next, my friend.
Thank you very much. Keep your eyes and ears open in all performance mediums.
Yes.
I'll hope to be there.
I believe it. I kind of want to see
man.
you. I want to see you do more clown work, and I kind of want to see you do everything. Yeah. I want to see you do more acting work. I want to see you be a director more. It's so hard to pick.
Yeah, I know. But
that's got to be
multimedia too. There's like there's YouTube, there's online, there's of course film and television.
Yeah.
I just got to keep being out there. Mm-hmm. Let's keep being out there.
Yeah, I agree. And the more we put out, the more we have a chance of reaching people and helping them smile in a fairly desolate world sometimes.
In a desolate world. Right. But speaking of clowning, I'm about to go, and I actually have to go to get to work at Cirque du Soleil on time.
We'll break a leg. Just make sure it's not yours. And have a wonderful time.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, Marcus.
Thanks for having me. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Seriously, I don't even know how that guy keeps up with himself. He's just so bursting with bright, shiny creativity and passion and willingness to work and put in the time and do whatever he's got to do to make the productions that he works on the absolute best that they can be. And let me tell you, to go out in front of, I don't know what the O Theater seats, 2,500, 3,000 people, to go out in front of those people a couple of times a night and be just with one other person carrying that show for a good 15 minutes. That's a lot of pressure, but he holds it well. Stay tuned next week for episode 50 with my special guest. Sign up for the HaskinCast podcast page and be entered for my monthly drawing for that flash drive. And remember that I will be taking the month of August off. We have plenty to offer you for the month of July. Take care, guys.